Don't like the carbon tax? Well, just buy a new car. Today we're talking about the latest hot tips and lifestyle advice from Environment Minister Catherine McKenna. In a rare and startling act of good journalism and pushback against the Liberals, some tough questions were asked of my muse, Environment Minister Catherine McKenna, when she appeared this week on CBC Radio's The Current to explain how and why the federal Liberals are imposing a carbon tax on provinces that have refused to comply with the federal government's climate change targets. Just listen to this exchange here.
But how do you make that sell job? I mean, 2/3 of Canadians live in the suburbs, and that means necessarily many of them are reliant on a car that for many of them, they're now going to pay 4 cents more a litre in gas to fuel. How do you sell them on the idea that this short-term cost, this immediate cost, is going to benefit in the long run?
Well, I mean, first of all, I will say that you will get back more than you will pay.
Then what's my incentive to change my behavior at all?
Your incentive is to think about, okay, when you buy your next vehicle, maybe I should choose a more energy efficient vehicle.
Just buy a new car, you say. No biggie. The Tesla Model 3 starts at about $45,000. That's probably the cheapest model of Tesla. And I mean, who doesn't have $45,000 to just throw around? Oh, and if you don't have $45,000 to plunk down on a car manufactured by the subsidy suckers at Tesla, then you can just take public transportation, although I'm not quite sure to where, because we live in Canada, which according to the World Bank is one of the developed nations with one of the lowest population densities on the entire globe. A lot of us live pretty far away from a lot of things, and that's okay. I sort of kind of like it that way, although I'm not sure what country McKenna thinks she's living in or what planet she's on. For that matter, if she thinks that public transportation is a practical option for anyone living outside the downtown core of a major city center. And I reject this contention from politicians, and we hear it all the time. This attitude that we're constantly just driving around aimlessly, and so we need these taxes from mother government to make us drive less. I don't know about you, but I'm far too busy driving around with a purpose, from volleyball to rugby to cadets to Girl Guides, for groceries and for work, etc., to be wasting any time just driving around aimlessly. I'd love to be able to drive around aimlessly just looking at the sights, but I don't have the time and I can't afford it anyway, because the cost of fuel is already just far too expensive, helped in large part by the massive government taxes that already exist on fuel. This strange carbon tax life advice from McKenna shows just how out of touch and detached from reality she really is, and detached from normal Canadians. And her gaffe is reminiscent of crazy things said by other pro-carbon tax politicians in the country, most notably the Alberta NDP, like when Rachel Notley said this.
It's not just a question of having a more fuel-efficient vehicle. It could sometimes be a question of taking a bus, walking, those kinds of things.
Although this clip here might be one of my personal favorites. Alberta's Environment Minister, Shannon Phillips, went on CBC Radio to tell other people to walk, ride a bike, or take the bus, and then she was forced to admit how she got to the studio on that cold winter day. Here.
People on Facebook are curious about how you got to the studio today, whether you took the bus or walked.
Oh, we drove. We absolutely did. And the reason we did that is we only had 10 minutes to get here. And, if those transit choices had been there, we would have used them. But we were running from one thing to another.
The war on carbon, though, it's part of the war on cars and practicality for us regular people. It wages on while our politicians ride around in the comfort, safety, and convenience of a government-funded SUV. My rebel colleague, Cian Bexty, he's had enough of this weird progressive movement to chase cars from our suburban streets. You can see all of his coverage about this issue and how he's helping Calgarians fight back at stopthewaroncars.ca. But getting back to McKenna, as you well know by now, our carbon-fighting overlords, they never do live by the rules and behaviors that they're trying so hard to make the rest of us live by. Just a couple of weeks ago, I exclusively reported that McKenna herself had accumulated some 60,000 air travel kilometers in her first 8 to 9 months as Minister of Environment and Climate Change. Then she bought carbon offsets to make herself feel better about her excessive air travel. And then she had the audacity to charge her penance for her climate crimes back to us, the taxpayer. And then, in another exclusive access to information investigation, the Rebel discovered that Catherine McKenna created her own shuttle bus service for environment and climate change workers. These 15-passenger vans run every 10 minutes between 2 Gatineau addresses. That's every 10 minutes, whether there are people in them or not. Back and forth, back and forth, back and forth all day long for 251 days per year. After Premier Notley told us all to walk, ride a bike, or take the bus, she refused to get on a chartered bus for a meeting of the premiers and instead took her own comfortable private transportation to the meeting with the premiers. I don't know about you, but I'm not going to take climate change very seriously until the people who spend their lives fear-mongering to us about it actually start living like the end is nigh. For the Rebel.media, I'm Sheila Gunn Reid. To see all of my colleague Cian Bexty's coverage on the war against the car in Calgary, go to stopthewaroncars.ca.